Feeling good, feeling right, every day, every night. I got joy, yeah, in my life, in my life. Come on, stand and sing with us. Hey, I used to wake up feeling real stressed, but now I wake up feeling real blessed. I'm in the sunshine and living my best life. There for a minute I was feeling real rough, until I saw that what I had was enough. I didn't know that I could love it this much, but I'm feeling good, feeling right, every day, every night. I got joy in my life, in my life. Say farewell, say goodbye to my world, freezing strife. I got joy in my life, in my life. Let's sing that again. Hey. I used to wake up feeling real stressed, but now I wake up feeling real blessed. I'm in the sunshine, I'm living my best life. There for a minute I was feeling real rough, until I saw that what I had was enough. I didn't know that I could love it this much. Oh, but I'm feeling good, feeling right, every day, every night. I got joy in my life, in my life. Come on, sing it. Say farewell, say goodbye to my world, reason strife. I got joy in my life, in my life. Joy, yeah. Oh, I got joy, yes I do. Here we go. When the rain falls, when the sun shines, when the winds change, in the hard times, I will stand firm, I'll be alright, 'cause I got joy in my life. When the rain falls, when the sun shines, when the winds change, in the hard times, I will stand firm, I'll be alright, 'cause I got joy. Feeling good, feeling right, yeah, every day, every night. I got joy in my life, in my life, oh yeah. Say farewell, say goodbye to my world, reason strife. I got joy in my life, in my life. Help me sing it. Joy, yeah. Oh, I got joy, yes I do. One more time, sing joy. Joy, I got joy, yeah, yeah. Yes, Joy, hold on. I want to know what y'all sign said, because I couldn't see it from up here. Oh, happy birthday, Liz. Let's wish Liz a happy birthday. She's watching online. That's so sweet. And if you had a birthday this week, happy birthday to you too. And happy Father's Daddies. We say Daddy's Day as a gay. Happy Daddy Day. But yes, happy Father's Day to everybody. We're so glad that you're with us here at Grace Point. You're free to be exactly who you are. Love exactly how you love. And we celebrate you here. You're safe. Let's sing together.
Y'all know this one, let's hear y'all sing. Sometimes your life feels like a broken roller coaster, 1,000 useless moving parts. Sometimes you spend your night too scared to get it closer, hiding out in the backseat of your car. You tell yourself it's raining, clouds are in your head. You tell yourself it's better to jump before you fall again, to lose. Come on, look up. Do you see the sunlight? Look up, there's flowers in your head. Hold on, 'cause somebody loves you. You know trouble's always gonna be there. Don't let them bring you to your knees. Look up. Mondays aren't always right. Someday you lose the fight. Well, life can be beautiful if you let it be. Come on. Tomorrow keeps haunting you with all kinds of mysteries. It's a blank page for your poetry if you let it be. So don't tell yourself it's raining. The clouds are in your head. You tell yourself it's better to jump before you fall again, before you lose it all again. Look up, do you see the sunlight? Look up, there's flowers in your head. Hold on, 'cause somebody loves you. You know trouble's always gonna be there. Don't let them bring you to your knees. Look up. Sometimes your life feels like a broken roller coaster, 1,000 useless moving parts. Come on, friends. Look up. Do you see the sunlight? Look up. There's flowers in your head. Hold on, 'cause somebody loves you. You know trouble's always gonna be there. Don't let them bring you to your knees. Look up. Trouble's always gonna be there. Look up. Don't let them bring you to your knees. I said look up. No, no.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Before we meet and greet, I've got a couple of announcements. So this weekend is, you can sit down, yeah. It's Pride, y'all. We are excited about Pride. Pride 2026. We hope you can join us at the parade. We've got some information about the parade. It starts at 10, but we need to line up between 9:15 and 9:30, 9:45. And we're spot number 54 on Broadway. Right on Broadway. So if you've signed up to be in the parade, we'll send an email out this week with all that information. So you can do that. And then the festival afterwards, hopefully you'll be able to join us at the booth there as well. This Thursday night, we've got the Sounds game, Pride Night at the Nashville Sounds. Who's going? Nobody's going? Okay, 2 people are going.
We got the coffee boys in the back.
Yeah. I think Logan and I are going to go to that too.
They're bringing the coffee and the donuts. So come on out, friends.
To Pride. But the information for that is this Thursday night. The gates open at 5:30, so we'll all gather and be there, and it'll be fun. Your love baskets, bags, please take those, fill those. There's an ongoing thing that we love to do for Grace Point. And the last thing, is giving. It's a thing, so we really appreciate all of the people who already support us. Honestly, thank you so much for giving of your time and your resources. And if you're interested in doing that, if this is something meaningful that you appreciate week after week, then we would love for you to think about giving to that as well. So anyway, now meet and greet, make some friends. We'll be back in just a second.
Hey, good morning, everybody. You know, there are certain holidays that happen that people like go to church and then they're in person, and then there's Father's Day where they don't. They're like grilling and drinking beer, I guess. It's an elementary school, so maybe not. Keep it in the parking lot. Keep it in the parking lot. It is so good to see you, everybody. Today is Father's Day. If you're celebrating today, happy Father's Day. If today is a day of grief, if today is a day that you just think celebration is the wrong word for you and your story, that's okay. This is not a Christian holiday. You don't have to celebrate it. Even if it was a Christian holiday, you don't have to celebrate it. So wherever you are on today, we are with you. We see you. We love you. And it's also important to he's fine. I got distracted for a second, but it's fine. We'll bring it back around. I did get distracted. What was I talking about? Oh, Father's Day. There is a healthy masculinity is still a good thing. The problem is that, especially in Christianity, the version of masculinity that's being called healthy is toxic and damaging to everybody, and gross. That's inappropriate. Just this idea that to be male, to be masculine, you have to be severe and uncaring and sort of impenetrable, when what we see in the Jesus story is not that kind of masculinity. It's a healthy masculinity. And so I think we need to reclaim that in the Christian tradition, a healthy, non-toxic masculinity that doesn't want to beat people up verbally and physically, but wants to see the world become a better place. Are you with me? So that's what we're up to in the world. Today we're gonna do what we do every week, which is celebrate communion together. It's a way for us to celebrate that we are grounded in the Christian story, the Christian tradition, and a way of reminding ourselves that the table of Jesus has always been radically welcoming and radically inclusive, even though the church has tried to fence it off. And so we're not looking for fences, we're looking for more wood planks to build a bigger table. And so if you're here today and you wanna celebrate communion, know that you are welcome as your full human self. If you're here today in communion, you think, well, this would just be too much, it's triggering because nobody's gonna judge you if you just wanna sit this one out, if you wanna just remain at your seat and reflect and think, meditate, pray, whatever that looks like for you. Just know that whatever you need, this space is appropriate for that. So come and celebrate communion, sit at your seat and reflect, do some combination of the two, whatever you need today. We read a welcome liturgy together every week as a way of making sure we all know that we're all welcome as we are. I want to invite you to read this with me if you would. Come to this table, you who have much faith and you who struggle with believing, you who have been here often and you who have come for the first time, you who are at peace and you who feel despair. We are all part of the human family, and there is a place for us here. Christ invites everyone to the table. May this bread and wine unite us all. Amen. You can celebrate at either side of the stage. Thanks for being here.
Don't wanna rush on ahead in my own strength when you're right here. Lord, I don't wanna rush on ahead in my own strength when you're right here. 'Cause I'm not in a hurry when it comes to your spirit, when it comes to presence, when it comes to your voice. I'm learning to listen, just to rest in your nearness. I'm starting to notice you are speaking.
Will you stand with us and sing this with us?
Lord, I wanna love like you do, yes. I wanna feel what you feel, I wanna see what you see. Lord, I wanna love like you do, I wanna feel like you feel, I wanna see what you see. 'Cause I'm not in a hurry when it comes to your spirit, when it comes to your presence, when it comes to your voice. I'm learning to listen, just to rest in your nearness. I'm starting to notice you are speaking, but I'm not in a hurry when it comes to your spirit, when it comes to your presence, when it comes to your voice. I'm learning to listen, just to rest in your nearness. I'm starting to notice you are speaking. I'm learning to listen, just to rest in your nearness. I'm starting to notice you are speaking. I'm starting to notice you are speaking. I'm starting to notice you are speaking.
Amen. Beautiful. You can be seated. Thank you.
So next Sunday is Pride Sunday here at Grace Point. And we try to do something special each year to commemorate that day. And so next week, we're going to wrap up this iteration of Bible Stories for Grown-Ups by looking at the story of Sodom and Gomorrah in the Hebrew Bible. There's probably not a story in the Bible that has been more used and abused, taken out of context, and misinterpreted to harm people than that story. And so want to just take some time to put it in its proper context and to just sort of share, here's actually what's going on. That way when somebody jumps in your comments on social media, you can be like, actually, and then you can share the gospel with them. Maybe they'll get saved. A boy can dream. A boy can dream. So today, the whole idea behind Bible Stories for Grown-Ups as a series is just this idea that for many of us, we were taught the Bible when we were very small, and we were given specific interpretations of it, and we were sort of told this is all it means, and you just need to repeat this interpretation for your whole life. But then in every other area of our life, we learn, we grow, we add, we build on knowledge, except for religiously. And it seems like that's a bad way to approach it. And so what we're asking is, what are the contexts of these stories? What's actually going on in the background? And I've wanted to talk about what we're going to talk about today for a very long time because I just think it's fascinating. And so if you like history and you enjoy a map or two, I told you, you can't tell me you enjoy maps. You're going to get them all the time. then today is going to be for you. And I do need to give credit where credit is due. I'm indebted to one of my favorite scholars for the insights that I'm going to share with you today. A guy named John Dominic Crossan. Any Crossan fans in the room? Dom is in his 90s and is doing his best work. Lord, I hope that. I really hope that if I live to be in my 90s, I hope I'm just getting started like he is. I mean, he's just doing some incredible work. And so he has a book that just came out this year that talks about this. I cannot remember the name of the book off the top of my head, but it's just absolutely fantastic. So let me ask you a question. How many of you think you could name all of Santa's reindeer? You are Mr. Christmas, Ricky. There's a song for it, right? You know, Dasher and Dancer and so you could do that. How many of you think you could name all of the planets in our solar system? Because there's an acronym for that, right? Mary's violet eyes make Johnny stay up nights, period, but then Pluto's gone. Or is it back? Is it still gone? I thought it had a resurgence, but now Pluto's been demoted again. Blame Neil deGrasse Tyson. How many of you can name the 12 disciples? Anybody? So we have 2 people. Here's the thing, you probably actually can't. Even though there's a song for that too that I grew up. And here's why you probably can't. The lists aren't the same. So if you go to the New Testament in the 3 places where this group is listed, in Matthew, and I put them in order here, like so that they're right next to each other for visual sake. But the reality is Mark was first, Mark wrote first, and Mark gave us the first list. Then Matthew copied 90% of Mark, including this, but Matthew flips the order, so they're not in the same order. Luke comes along and just kicks out Thaddeus. He's gone, and we have an extra Judas. We have Judas, son of James, and then Judas Iscariot. And Luke changes the name of Simon the Canaanian to Simon the Zealot, which is just an interesting change. Now, part of the reason is Zealot is anachronistic before the Jewish War of 66 to 73. Nobody was really called a zealot back then, but most scholars think this Canaanian doesn't mean like he's from Cana. They think it means, etymologically, that it connects to essentially the same thing as a zealot, somebody who was willing to use violence to advance the cause. Right, so this is, and if you look, it's really interesting that Jesus has quite a few people on this list that maybe shouldn't play well with each other. There are tax collectors, there are fishermen who we're going to talk about today, there are zealots. These are all different people who probably, I mean, you put a tax collector next to a zealot or a fisherman, I think there's probably going to be a fight because these people don't get along with each other. And so this is just, we're not going to talk, I thought about doing a sermon where we just talked about all 12 disciples for 3 or 4 hours together, but I figured that you may have a grill to go to or something, and so we're just going to focus on the fishermen. When you look at the New Testament, Jesus sort of has this concentric circles of followers. So if you start the outer layer, there's the crowd. These are the folks who, I mean, everywhere Jesus goes, he attracts a crowd. People who show up, 5,000 plus people in the middle of the wilderness. But then it sort of becomes a little smaller when you have people who would probably embrace the term disciple. They're people who were following Jesus around, people who were trying to live and imitate the teachings of Jesus. Then in the Gospels, we find out that there were these 72 at one point that Jesus commissioned and sent out to do some work. But then you funnel that down more, and there were 12. They're called the 12, who are sort of a reconstituted symbol of the 12 tribes of Israel. Because at this point, when Jesus is living and working, the northern kingdom, which was 10 tribes, has been completely wiped out. And so Jesus is sort of, through calling these 12, is sort of reconstituting Israel. He's bringing the scattered tribes back together symbolically. And then you have this inner group of 3, who Peter, James, and John, who spent a lot of additional time with Jesus, sort of when everybody else was busy doing something else, they were spending time with Jesus and learning. And there are stories in the New Testament about Jesus calling some of these disciples, not all of them. Some of them, we just get names in a list, and then they get no personality. By the way, when you go to the Gospel of John, which we didn't mention here, John mentions the 12, but doesn't ever give a list. He names a few, but some of them aren't on any of the other lists, like Nathanael. And when you get to the end of John in chapter 21, which wasn't original to John, but got stuck on at the end, it says there were 7. So John is just everywhere on this. But there are these stories of a few of them. A few of these disciples are given stories and personalities, and they become kind of center stage in the Jesus story. One of my favorites is the story of Jesus calling the first disciples, which were 4 fishers, people who made their living as best they could, going out on the lake, trying to catch fish. And here's, Mark tells that story in chapter 1. Right after Jesus shows up in Galilee preaching, we get this story from John 1. As Jesus passed along the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon, who eventually becomes Peter, Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. And Jesus said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of people." And immediately, by the way, one of Mark's conventions, the best gospel Mark, one of Mark's conventions is this use of the term immediately. He uses it all the time. He's going to use it again in a minute. Immediately, they left their nets and followed him. As he went a little farther, he saw James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, who were in their boat mending the nets. Immediately, he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men and followed him. How many of you have heard that story before? Pretty familiar. Probably saw it flannel graphed once or twice in your life, maybe. It's a familiar story, but familiarity can breed unfamiliarity, which means you can know something so well that you cease to really know it because you don't realize it can still surprise you. And there's some stuff going on in the background of this story that makes the story make sense. So let me start with just a few questions that, as we read this text, that emerged for me. The first question is this: why did Jesus decide to launch his movement with fishers? Why go to the lake and call people from their fishing trade to join him? Why start there? And we find out later that these folks probably, we would say, are not educated. These folks are just eking out a living, is looking for daily bread. Why would Jesus start there? Why doesn't Jesus go and call the scholars? Right? Why doesn't he just go and call the powerful? Why did these fish, isn't this interesting? Notice this story. Jesus says, "Hey, come follow me." Immediately, they drop their nets. Immediately, they dock the boat. Immediately, they follow Jesus. Isn't that a little weird? They're used to taking a gamble. It's just interesting. It's interesting that they would abandon what was at that point providing whatever meager existence they had. You know, can you imagine somebody just walking by you while you're at work and saying, "Hey, come follow me." And you're just like, "Okay, I'll quit my job." And you just go? That's not a thing that happens. Why would these fishers just leave everything behind to follow Jesus in that moment? And then the bigger question is, why did Jesus happen when he happened? Why did that movement happen when it happened? What was it about that context in the 20s of the first century in Galilee, the north of Israel? Why did Jesus' movement happen when it happened? 20s of the first century in the villages and towns along the Sea of Galilee. That's where the movement of Jesus started. In the Gospel of John, Jesus goes to Jerusalem 3 times. I don't think that actually happened. Jesus, in the other Gospels, goes to Jerusalem once. And when he gets to Jerusalem, he's executed. It's like the movement has been, and this is a very rural, mostly rural area. We're going to talk about a city there in a minute, but it was mostly rural. So you have people who are fishers, you have people who are working in agriculture, and you have people who are tradespeople, like craftsmen. The word is tekton. People translate that carpenter, but it really can mean lots of different things. It can mean stonemason. It's just people who are doing that sort of trade. Those are the people who lived mostly in the time and in the place where Jesus was. Now, if we want to understand the answer to those questions, because there are actually answers to these questions, we have to do a little bit of deep diving in the context. And so we're now going to put up the first map. And if there's a place you got to go, I'm the one you need to know. I'm the map. And so this is a map of Judea and Galilee from the first century. Now, here's what you need to know. Before the year 4 BCE, this territory was ruled by a guy named Herod the Great. They call him Herod the Great. Now, they call him the Great because he was a brilliant builder. He created, for example, he wanted a palace on a hill in the middle of the desert where there wasn't a hill. So you know what he did? He built a hill. And he put his palace on top of the hill, and he had, salt water. I think it was a saltwater swimming pool that maybe it was even heated. I mean, he was just a brilliant builder. He was also a complete psychopath. He was very paranoid. He killed wives. He killed his own children because he thought they were after his power. At one point when he was sick, he said to round up all the influential people and put them in a room. And when he died, kill them all so at least there would be weeping at his funeral. Like that level of completely deranged. He died in the year 4 BCE. And when he died, Rome had to figure out, what do we do with this territory that Herod ruled? Herod became king of Judea, king of the Jews, in the year 40. But he didn't take control until the year 37 because he was the king of a territory he could not access because somebody else was in charge of it. And so through Herod, the Romans help him, and it's sort of a proxy war. Aren't you glad those things don't happen anymore? It was a proxy war between Rome and the Parthians. And the Parthians backed the people in Jerusalem at the time, and the Romans backed Herod, and they eventually had a war, and Herod came out triumphant. And so he becomes the official in the land king of the Jews in the year 37. And he rules until 4 BCE when he dies. And so Rome decides, we gotta do something to make sure this is governed, because Herod, maybe the other thing he was good at besides building is he was good at keeping a really solid relationship with Rome. He made sure tribute was there. He built buildings and he built whole towns and named them after Julius Caesar. Really, really suave and savvy politician. He had a couple sons, actually 3 sons on this map. But he had this son named Antipas. And Antipas desperately wanted to succeed his father as king. And he did everything he could to do that. He even goes to Rome and tries to, grease the wheels with Caesar Augustus to try to see if he can make this happen. And Augustus listens to other people and decides, there's no way I'm putting this guy in charge of all this. It would be a complete train wreck. So he says to Antipas, you're gonna be not the king that you wanna be, you're gonna be a tetrarch, which means you're gonna rule over, a fourth of the land. And so the territory, and this almost feels like an intentional, mean thing to do to Antipas, because if you look here, the green is where Antipas is in charge. So it's the Galilee where Jesus grew up. It's where Nazareth is, where Jesus lived. But he also is in charge of Perea. Do you see how far apart these are? It doesn't make any, it's almost like they're trying to hoping he'll fail because it's such a big territory that's disconnected. And so they put Antipas in charge of this region of the Galilee, but he doesn't give up. He still wants to believe that one day he's going to be king. And he sang this song called, "I Just Can't Wait to Be King." And it was just this incredible desire that he had in his heart. And so next map. So in the Galilee, this is a little bit of a closer look at the Galilee. I'm just gonna move this back here so I don't trip over it. And so here's what you really need to know. This was mostly all rural. You can see the Sea of Galilee here. The big city, the capital city of the Galilee was this town called Sepphoris. It was 4 miles-ish from Nazareth where Jesus grew up. It's a place where people from a little village like Nazareth, which wouldn't have even been on the map back then, where they maybe, if they were day laborers, where they would get up in the morning and go to work in the city and help building the city. And then they would come home. Around 4 BCE, when Herod died, there was a rebellion that got put down here by the Romans. They crucified, the line is that they ran out of crosses for the bodies. They crucified so many people. And so you can imagine Jesus, the scholars date his birth between 6 and 4. We just really don't know. But imagine Jesus being a little kid. What were the stories that he was growing up hearing about the Romans? Right? Some scholars have said, why does Jesus not have, you meet this character named Joseph early, but there's no father figure in Jesus' life mentioned after he's an adult. Is it possible that even his own family was touched by violence? That's just historical conjecture. There's no way to know that. This town of Sepphoris was a Greco-Roman city. The Galilee was a pretty diverse region, by the way, because it's connected to these other territories like the Decapolis, which was all Gentile. And so Jesus also would have grown up, Nazareth being a fully Jewish town, but in a city like Sepphoris, you're gonna bump into people from all over the place who are different than you, who look different than you, who speak different than you, who have different customs and practices than you would if you were a first century Jewish person. And so this is the region of the Galilee. Now this city, Sepphoris, was the capital city until the year 20. In the year 20, this guy, Herod Antipas, decided to do something else. he decided to move the capital city from inland at Sepphoris, and he decided to move it to this spot on the Sea of Galilee, and he started he founded a brand new city, and he called it Tiberias. Does anybody want to guess the name of the second Roman emperor who was in charge when Herod Antipas was building this city? His name wasn't Vinny, it was Tiberius. And so Antipas starts a city, names it after the Roman emperor, and the lake gets its name changed too. It's no longer the Sea of Galilee or the Lake of Kinneret or whatever it was called among people. It becomes the Sea of Tiberias. Now, do you think it's easy to move a capital city? Can you imagine if you found out, sounds like something that could come out of Washington right now, but we're gonna move the capital from DC to Sheboygan. Can you imagine the difficult undertaking that would be? Because who's living in the capital? Well, the powerful people. So these people have built homes, they have villas, they have all this wealth and opulence, and then Herod Antipas comes up to them one day and says, hey, we're gonna take this and just move it over here. Why? You're preaching the sermon. That's the question. Why? It's a strange move. I imagine it could be a move that upset people. It could be a move that frustrated people. How do you take an entire capital city on what seems like a whim and just relocate it? Because Antipas is shrewd like a fox. By the way, one of his nicknames was the fox, one of his symbols. When Jesus says in the Gospels, when they say, hey, Herod Antipas is trying to kill you, he says, you go tell that fox. Now, he's not making that up. That was associated with Antipas. Why would he move his capital? Because the answer, he wants to commercialize the lake. Because up until this point, the lake was a commons, which means it was public. And so fishers would have gone to the lake to catch food to feed their family. Makes sense. But then Antipas builds a new capital, changes the name of the lake, and suddenly now you need a fishing license in modern terms. And suddenly now what you used to be able just to go throw your net in and put your boat in and get something for your family now is no longer a public resource, but it has been privatized. And now this formerly public but now private lake where people used to get food to feed their families is now being designed to line Antipas and the empire's coffers. So the fish that were being caught no longer went to somebody's table. They were caught, they were processed, they were salted, they were exported beyond the region. And they also made this fermented condiment, this fish sauce called garum. There are some great videos on social media. There are a couple of channels. One is called Eats History, and the other, I forget what the other one's called. But these folks, I've watched videos in the last couple of months of people making garum. And when I tell you, you may give up food entirely if you watch it. The Romans loved it. They put it on everything. They did with garum what I do with mustard. They just put it on everything and went for it. And so and this is how empire always works. I'll never forget being in an anthropology class in seminary and studying about the Caribbean islands and how when the British arrived, what they did is they took a group of people who had always been able to grow their own food and care for themselves. And the British said, stop growing your own food, just grow sugarcane, we'll import your food. And suddenly you have people now who no longer are self-sustaining, they're depending on the empire. And the empire is just extracting. That's what empire does. It extracts wealth from the community. It privatizes what was public and accessible to all and only makes it benefit the few. Aren't you glad we're not living in that world anymore? That's a joke. And so Antipas does this, and now suddenly he's taxing fish and the related commerce. He's making the lake the center of revenue. And his hope is, if I can show Tiberius that I'm really good at this, if I can make the empire more wealthy, if I can maybe flatter him by naming some things after him, then maybe, just maybe, I'll get to be king someday. Now think about the stories in the Gospels. Think about stories where the disciples are on the lake and they've been fishing all night and they don't catch anything. I used to think they were just bad at their jobs. But what happens to a natural resource when it has been completely abused? Where there used to be fish, there are no longer fish. Or where there used to be an abundance of fish, it is now scarce. But when Jesus comes along, suddenly there is abundance again. Because Jesus is teaching them a different way to live in relationship to each other and into their natural resources. What is also interesting is that Antipas was successful. In the Galilee, the economy was booming. But John Dominic Crossan asked this question, and I can't do it in the same way because I don't have an Irish accent. But he asked the question, for whom does the boom boom? The economy's booming, but who's benefiting from the boom? It's sort of like when politicians today tell you the stock market is at an all-time high, but you can't afford gas and groceries. It's booming for someone. Somebody's getting wealthy. Defense contractors are getting wealthy for sure right now. But who is actually benefiting? It is the powerful and the rich. For whom does the boom boom? Which means that fishers, people who woke up in the morning, went down to the lake, put in their boat, had their nets, and they tried to fish. Suddenly, their life becomes way harder because what used to be accessible is now behind layers of red tape. And now they're no longer catching food and feeding their families. They're having to try to find food elsewhere because all of the fish are being sent elsewhere. And an example of sort of the economic squeeze that was happening in Galilee amongst most people can be seen in this discovery, archaeological discovery that was found in 1986 on the Sea of Galilee. Have you heard about they call it the Jesus boat. Have you heard about this? So in 1986, there was a drought at the Sea of Galilee. And when the water receded because of the drought, this boat became clear. It was in the mud. They had found a boat that is dated to the 1st century. Now, it's called the Jesus boat. There is no connection to Jesus that we know of. Like, is this the boat Jesus and the disciples were on? Probably not. They were probably, who knows? Maybe, who knows? Probably not. But they found this boat. It was, because it was in mud, it was preserved really unbelievably well. And so this boat, how does this boat reflect the economics of the time? Because this boat is made up of 10 different types of wood. 10 different types. Do you know what that means? It means they're scrounging. It means that when one part of the boat messes up and needs to be replaced, they don't go get a new boat or they don't repair it with the same, they just get whatever they can find and they patch it with whatever they can find. It's sort of like when you see a car, or maybe you've even driven a car where you had a problem with the hood and you could not afford to get the hood. And so you have a black car and a red hood. Right? And you see, what does that reflect? An economic squeeze, that there's something wrong with this, but because of the economic situation, I can't afford to take it and get a factory hood. I've got to just get whatever I can from the junkyard. It was that sort of vibe. So it wasn't likely a wood shortage. It was likely just the economic situation. And when its owners thought, okay, this is now past the point of repair, we're just going to have to let it go, they took away everything from the boat that had any sort of use or value, and they just let it sink, which again reflects the economic squeeze. Let's take what we can maybe use to help fix another boat down the road, and let this one go. So let's go back to our initial questions. Next slide. Why did Jesus happen when he did in the 20s? Isn't it just the strangest coincidence that right around the time Antipas builds a brand new city to take advantage of the lake, suddenly Jesus experiences a call to go preach by the same lake where all this action is happening? Why does Jesus happen? Why by that lake? And why did he call fishers first? I think the answer hopefully is somewhat obvious. He went to the lake because the lake is where the action was. When you are preaching a message that Jesus called the kingdom of God, which is grounded in a vision and grounded in values that say there is enough in God's good world for everyone if we just share our resources. You think that's a modern take? Like, that's what Jesus taught his disciples. What do you think the point of feeding the 5,000 is? If everybody sits down and opens their basket, there's enough for everybody. Jesus goes to the heart of where the empire is destroying his community, and he goes to the people most deeply affected, and he says, we're going to start a movement that challenges this, that pushes back on this, and that offers a better way to be human together. Jesus shows up at the Sea of Galilee when he does, by the lake when he does, calling the disciples that he calls, because his kingdom message needs to be present at the place where the most damage is being done. And so who else does Jesus call? There are other stories in the New Testament. He goes to tax collectors and he says, hey, you all have been benefiting from the harm of your own people. Because what Rome would do is when they wanted to get taxes, they would essentially contract with a person, usually somebody from the population, who would then contract other people to go out and just rob people, essentially. Because there was no regulation. As long as Rome got their share, they didn't care how much you took. So, you could go, just imagine a tax collector sitting at the dock, people coming in with their fish, and immediately starts taxing. Now imagine you're these fishermen. Jesus shows up one day with a guy named Levi, a guy named Matthew. Where'd you find him? Oh, he's a tax collector. I just found him at his toll booth. If you're these disciples, how do you feel about that? And you got a zealot over in the corner just sharpening the knife. Like, we know what to do with tax collectors around here. A good tax collector is a dead tax collector. A good Roman's a dead Roman. That's how this whole thing works, which is interesting because what Jesus creates is not an echo chamber. He creates a diverse collection of people from all different backgrounds, as if to say, whatever the kingdom of God is, it is going to require us to learn to work together if it's ever going to happen. If we're going to realize God's vision and dream for the world, then it's going to be all of us, not just a few of us. So why are we talking about this? Just a few takeaways for me from this story. One is that protest is our tradition. Protest is not something Christians do when they're woke or when there are, social justice people. It should be embedded in the Christian tradition. Our movement started because Jesus looked at the landscape of his home region and he saw it being pillaged and destroyed, and he, with the fire of God in his belly, showed up and announced a different way to do it. In the third Sunday of July, the 19th, I'm gonna have a really dear friend of mine. His name's Brad Davis. He's from my hometown, and he is currently in a community called Welch in McDowell County, West Virginia, and it's not McDowell, it's McDowell. Prepare yourselves. You want to be hospitable, McDowell. This community where he's been pastoring, and now he's on a break from pastoring and is just doing these social work. But this community still doesn't have clean drinking water. Go look at McDowell County, West Virginia, and you'll see images online of drinking water that is yellow, that is brown. They have to do weekly water drops where they will announce, come to the Gary Community Center on this Friday at 2:00. We're gonna have bottled water we're gonna give to the community. And while the governor of West Virginia is celebrating a new data center that's destroying a community, and while he's talking about how well the state's doing financially, they're not. This community doesn't even have clean drinking water, and they won't address it. And so my friend Brad looks at his community and he says, I'm not gonna stand for it. And he's leading a movement to bring change to McDowell County. What is that? That is the Jesus movement. That is the work of Jesus. At its core, Jesus was not leading a spiritual revolution to get people away from earth and into heaven. Jesus was leading a political and spiritual movement that was trying to bring the politics of heaven to earth. A world where everybody has enough. A world where nobody's marginalized, excluded, and left out. That's what Jesus is up to in the world. Protest is our tradition. It's not just a piece of it. Our movement began because somebody looked at the world and said, this isn't okay with God, so it isn't okay with me. We've got to change it. And every important movement in history has generally started with somebody or a group of somebodies. Think about the women's suffrage movement. Think about the civil rights movement. People looking at a world of inequality and equity, a world where people didn't have basic human rights, and saying, we've got to change that. And that never, have you noticed in those movements, the powers that be never say, thanks for bringing that to our attention. We've been doing this wrong the entire time. Of course we're gonna give people access to equality. Of course we're gonna give people their basic human rights. That is never what empire does. It always tries to withhold. And there's always a punishment for the people doing the work. Second, I want to put that list back up. The disciples, Jesus created community that was complicated and transformative. I found a note on my phone. Sometimes I'll make notes on my phone about things, and then I forget what they're about. And it took me a minute, but I remembered this one. On Halloween, every year, we take our kids trick-or-treating, and every year the same thing happens. They argue the entire time. And what they argue about is who gets to ring the doorbell. As if we don't have one of those at home. You know, like, hey, can we go out to dinner? No, can we go out to hibachi? No, we have hibachi at home, right? That sort of thing. No, kids, we have doorbell at home. They'll argue. And I just remember thinking, is this what it felt like to be Jesus? The disciples just arguing all the time, arguing about who's the greatest, arguing about who's the most important, or maybe arguing about who should be included. And if you look at this list, I mean, you have people on here, fishermen, you have violent insurrectionists, you have tax collectors, you have maybe some people who like, I don't even know why I'm here, but he said, follow me, and I just went like a robot. What a complex, complicated group of people to try to hold together. I wish we had more in the Gospels about how Jesus, he obviously didn't manage it too well because one of the disciples in the story ends up betraying him in the end. But what must it have been like to travel with these folks trying to hold such a diverse collective of people together? And yet Jesus was in the work of transforming. And in order to transform communities, you have to transform people. And in order for people to be transformed, they have to be treated like people. And so I want to implore with you, my social media savvy fellow Jesus followers, let's show up differently in the world. Because what I see is that there is the same energy on what we would say progressive side as there is on the conservative side. And that energy, I operated in that energy for a long time because I'm sarcastic and quick-witted, and I would say something to somebody and just walk away thinking, man, I really got them. I really got them. They don't know the difference in your, and now they know. I bet they're just gonna learn everything else they didn't know before. I've tried to do tactic, and that is I try to out-Jesus people. And here's what I mean. If you've seen my social media over the last week, I've been doing a lot of posting about a couple things. One about pride, because it's Pride Month. I don't know if you've heard that yet. And the second is about women in ministry, because the SBC just once again doubled down on bad policy. And I've had hundreds of people show up in my comments, most of them thinking I've never read the Bible before. One of my favorites is when like, have you read? And I just write, yes. Yes, I've read that. But what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to see these folks who show up in my mentions. I'm trying to really see them as humans. And I'm trying to understand them because I think they're really afraid. And you know what I know about me? Is when I'm really afraid, I do not make my best decisions. When I'm really afraid, I can tend to lash out. We had this thing that happened last week where we were going out of a restaurant and one of my girls wasn't paying attention and walked right out in the middle of the road and a car was coming. And eventually it turned off the street before. It wasn't but it scared me and I yelled, get out of the road. And she thought I was mad at her. I wasn't mad at her, I was scared to death. And that fear came out of me in a loud scream that everybody in the town heard. Fear doesn't make us make our best decisions. I'm not saying this is everybody's work, but I do think for me, showing up in a way that says to people, look, I actually want you to get this. I don't want to put bigots in their place as much as I want to help them see that they need to change their minds. And so I've been showing up, I've been offering to pray for people. When they tell me I'm praying for you, I'm like, oh, thanks, I'm praying for you too. I'm praying that you will open your eyes and your heart to the expansive, inclusive love of God that has always been everybody's. Because I think it's better to change people's hearts and minds than it is to put them in their place. I did hit the block button a couple times because some people just need to be put in time out. And I'm a human being and I wasn't gonna be nice to them much longer. And so I just moved them out of the way. But I wonder if that partly is what Jesus is up to. You know, one of the things I do now is when somebody's mean to me on the internet, I go on their profile and I find a picture of them with people they love. Because it reminds me, this is a human being with grandkids. This is a human being with a partner. This is a human being with kids. And look at them, they can be nice. They can be loving. They're just deeply, deeply afraid, and they have bought into a religious lie. And they are so afraid that if they let it go, they're going to go to hell. Do you know how awful that must be? How many of you remember that? That constant threat of hell, that constant fear. I think about the people in my life who love me and disagree with me, who think I'm going to hell, and I'm no longer offended by it because I realize they must love me enough because their theology is so grounded in fear and punishment that when they look at me, they are legitimately scared for me. And I wonder if there is now look, I think accountability, I don't think Jesus calls zealots and says, keep sharpening your knife in the corner. I think Jesus is saying, we don't do that here. This is not a permitless carry community. It's not a permitted carry community. Put your sword away. The ones who live by the sword die by the sword. I think Jesus is teaching them how to be different. He's not saying like, show up and keep doing tax collectors' work. No, actually, I want you to stop tax collecting. I want you to take that same energy and recruit people for the movement. I just think Jesus is teaching us that there's a better way to be human. And I think he was right about loving our enemies. And I think being in some sort of relationship in a community like Grace Point, one of the things I love about us is we all don't agree on everything. There are some of us, I think some things, and then some of you disagree and you're wrong. And that's okay. A community can be diverse enough. We can center on values and interpret the Bible a little bit differently. Now, there are some barriers there. If you're interpreting the Bible to erase human beings, that's a problem. We have to address that. But the reality is, Jesus is creating complicated and messy community, and I think that's the only kind of community that actually exists. It's complicated and messy. One of the things I learned is pastoring a progressive church is just as challenging as pastoring a conservative church, just in different ways, but sometimes in the same ways. Because people show up, and people are a part of it, and we are beloved, and we are in the image of God, and sometimes we're difficult. And Jesus is doing that in community. And then here's the thing I keep coming back to in my own mind and journey. I think following Jesus is still the point. I think it's still the point. And the word we would use in the old school is discipleship. It is becoming formed in the way of Jesus. And I think that is what the modern church, like why does MAGA exist and why is the bulk of evangelical Christianity a part of it? Because discipleship's not been emphasized, because we haven't talked about actually following Jesus. We've had smoke machines and really cool light shows, and we've packed the rooms, and we've told people what they want to hear so that they'll give us our money. But what we have not done is we've not said, Jesus actually taught us to love our enemies, and we've got to learn how to do that. Jesus taught us to share our resources. We actually need to do that, not just with the church. Jesus taught us to show up in compassion. And if empathy is a sin, sin boldly. And I think, how do you end up with a church that somehow baptizes the stuff coming out of DC? You end up with a church doing that has not been taught to follow the teaching of Jesus. So one of the things I hope is that part of what we do every week when we're together is we learn about the teaching of Jesus, and then we seek to embody it in our world when we go back out into it. That maybe we have more capacity for compassion after we've been together than we did when we came in. Anybody have compassion fatigue? Can we just be honest about it? Like sometimes it would just be easier to smack people. How many of you have done that? You've just started smacking. I see that hand. Yeah. I hope what we do together is we inspire one another and encourage one another and remind one another that the way of Jesus is not a system of belief to hold on to, but it is a way of life to embody in the world around us. And that almost every week when we're together, that we hear something that causes us to leave our nets and to follow along for one more week or for one more day or for one more hour. That something in the experience together inspires us and encourages us to leave our nets and get going. Do y'all find that interesting about the lake? Isn't that just transformed this whole thing for me? And I hope that maybe we feel a little more empowered to use our voices to stand up for what really matters. because protest is our tradition, which means if we need to call our elected officials, even if it feels like we're wasting our breath, let's call them. Let's make sure they know that there are people in the communities they represent that don't share their values, but that actually value humanity, that value compassion, that value the good we could possibly do, not only in our own country, in our own state for each other and our fellow citizens, but for the entire world. If we spent less on bombs, we could change the world. We could eradicate poverty. Do you know our country helped stem the AIDS pandemic because of a piece of legislation that has now been overturned? Do you realize this? We did a good thing, and now it doesn't exist anymore, and people in the world are suffering because of it. Protest is our tradition. By the way, how many of you are marching next week? This is not for public shaming, just wondering. Pride began as a protest. And so next week when we're marching down Broadway, it is a celebration, but it's still a protest because there's still a lot of folks who think our LGBTQ plus siblings shouldn't exist, or at least not exist as their full human selves. And so I'm gonna put on a rainbow stole next Saturday, and we're gonna march down Broadway as a way of saying, our LGBTQ plus siblings are made in the image of God, and you will get rid of them over our dead bodies. And that, friends, is not adjacent to the Jesus movement. That is the Jesus movement. Are you with me? Let's pray. Jesus, we are grateful for the stories that we find preserved in our sacred text that remind us that this movement was not just a spiritual feel-good movement, but that it began in the heart of a community where people were being displaced, they were being economically disadvantaged, where the rich were getting richer and the poor were getting poorer, and the rich were getting richer at the expense of the poor. And we look at our own world and we see that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Help us be so overwhelmed with love and compassion, desire and a hunger and thirst for justice, that we actually show up in the world, that we exercise our tradition's call to protest, that as we confront the injustice and evil and bigotry and hate around us, that we do not let it shape us, but that we speak with love and we call people to be the best version of themselves while we're also seeking to become our best version of us. And we realize that a movement that begins with fishers has a place for us. And that whatever we feel like our inability is, whatever we feel like our lack of creativity or resource, whatever that looks like, may we realize that whatever we place in the hands of Jesus, whatever we place in the hands of our community, becomes more than enough when we work together. Thank you for this community. Thank you for the work we have been called to and gifted to do. We offer this in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen.
I'm going to leave you with an encouraging song today to carry on and do exactly that work that Josh just talked about. If this is what it's like to be unholy, if this is what it's like to be lost, I will take this heresy over your hypocrisy and count any cost. If this is what it's like to be empty again, if this is what it's like to be adrift, I will take this darkness over any light you cast, you and your original sin. Carry on, carry still a stillness over the deep. There is still a word in the night. The day blind stars over our heads again wait with their light. Carry on, carry on. Oh, there's no evil in a child's eyes. So carry on. Oh, there's no evil in a child's eyes. It was made and it was good. So carry on, carry on, carry on. Who carry on, carry on, oh, carry on, carry on. Amen. Grace Point, thank y'all for being with us. We hope you have a good week, and we'll see you at Pride. We love y'all. Help us get these chairs too, by the way. Love you. Bye.